Ladles and jelly spoons, welcome back to Badgerworks. Today, this. This is a Revell 29 Model A Roadster hot rod, still wrapped up in the packaging. And this is what we're going to build today. So let's get on with it. Right, so yes, this is the 29 Model A Roadster from Revell in 120, is it 124th or 125th scale. And this actually I think is quite a new one because it says copyright 2020. So this is a newish one. This was another of the innumerable gifts I've had from Bunny Kitten. So thank you, Bunny Kitten, love you. So yeah, I seem to be on a bit of a car bent at the moment, so I thought this one might be fun. But there's a bit of a difference because let me show you something. Oh, this is going to be interesting. So, I've just been cleaning these bits up. But I also have this. Now this, that doesn't look like it at the moment, is actually a 572 cubic inch big block V8 with a tunnel ram. And I'm hoping to put this into that car. Maybe. So this engine came from, and I'll show you in more detail in a minute, but this came from, I 3D printed this, it came from Black Box Miniatures on my mini factory. I'll put a link in the description. And you've seen me use these headers before on the Freedom Ford, and this engine is the kit, as it were, that those headers come from. But as I mentioned at the time, and I'll say it again now, the great thing about this, in fact, hang on, let me get the camera and you can have a closer look at this thing. Wait 1 second. Right, that's a bit better, isn't it? So, as I mentioned before, the nice thing about this is the fact that, as you can see, it prints in pieces, which means you've got the block and the heads and the headers, and in this particular instance, that's actually one of the first prints I did. It didn't come out very well, so I'm using this one just for mock-up. I've got more transmissions printing. Sump. And then you can change the top end. So this is the rotating assembly on the front, or the accessory drive on the front. That tiny little thing is the oil filter. But for this particular project, I'm going to use this tunnel ram. Which then comes with air filters and a nice scoop that goes on the top like that, and also a different set of rocker covers. And as I say, because it's all in pieces, it means you can mix and match the different bits. So you've got like the base engine, which is the long block, as it were. But then you can have like tunnel ram, you can have an intake with a single carburetor. There's a Vortec type blower, and there's like dual turbos and various like ram air intakes and all kinds of things you can get. And so you can mix and match and basically come up with a custom engine. And I mean, I have no affiliation with these people or this person. I basically saw this on my mini factory and it was exactly what I was looking for. And so I bought it and I downloaded it and I printed it out. And yeah, so this is the first project I'll be doing the whole engine, and we'll see how well it works, because of course this is not designed, or that kit is not designed for this engine, so we're gonna have to do some modification, but I think it'll be fine. So I think what we'll do now is we'll get the kit out. I'll put this all to one side. I might put it in a little box so I don't lose it actually. Here's a box, this will do. Right, I'm gonna put all these bits in here so that I don't lose them, because I've just spent a long time cleaning these up. I do not want to lose them, especially the oil filter. So we'll pop all those in there. I think the one problem we're going to have is going to be these headers, but we'll talk about that when the time comes. So let's put all this to one side. Right. All the plastic bags. A very thick set of instructions. Oh, another plastic bag. Tyres and glass and a sheet of decals. Now this is interesting because it has the white walls for the tyres, and apparently I've had a quick look at the instructions. These are for the seats and these are for like the interior panels, but we'll probably paint all these, and then there are a couple of different paint options. One thing I found interesting looking at the instructions, it actually says for the number plates to not put them in water and to actually stick them on with PVA glue, which I thought was quite interesting. So we'll have to try and figure that out, why that is, but never mind. So the thing I really love, these ones down here, these are meant to be rust. So you stick them on to simulate patches of rust, which just, yeah, okay. But anyway, let's put those back in the box. Let's have a quick look at the instructions. So yeah, those are the two that you can build. So they're both kind of, you know, hot rods, but you've got a triple carb set up there, and then there's a roots blower on the other one. Oh, let's have a look at these instructions very quickly. Hang on. I'll just open it at random. Well, they seem fairly clear. We'll see as we go through, of course, but you know. In fact, actually turning it to this page, I think this is going to be the problem, is these headers. Because the headers that come with this kit are designed to come basically straight out the side of the engine, and the ones that are on that other engine don't. We might have to modify them. But anyway, we'll worry about that when the time comes. Tyres, we don't need to worry about those. Glass, yep, okay. Let's get a couple of these bags open and just see what kind of state this thing is in, because it actually looks pretty good so far through the bag. I'm not going to go through all of these because we'll be here all day, but we'll have a look at a couple of them and see what they're like. Oh, come out. Oh, there's the back axle. So this is something that I quite like. This is it's a fuel cell. That's brilliant. I don't know what that thing is there. It looks like someone's lunchbox. So these are some of the wheels. It's got finned drum brakes, and I think these attach to these, and this is what lets it all turn, from what I gather. I'm assuming that's the boot lid, but that looks pretty good at first glance. This is the floor pan, so this is going to get hacked. Made in China, obviously. Parts of the exhaust. That's the dashboard. And I've got something to do with this dashboard later, hopefully, so that should be interesting. Let's have a look at some of the chrome bits. Yeah, see, there are the headers. Oh, there's the blower. And the scoop. Oh, chrome oil pan, that's 10 horsepower. Chrome rocker covers. Chrome water pump. Is that, I'm assuming that's the pan for the gearbox, wherever the gearbox is. But then you've also got, you've got some chrome wheel, a couple of options here for chrome wheels. There's a lot of chrome here actually. Chrome steering wheel, which is a nice touch, so you can obviously mask the middle and paint around the, I mean, I'll probably just paint the whole thing anyway, but we'll see. But yeah, on the whole, this is all looking pretty good. So I think what we'll do is get some of this stuff out of the bag and start putting it together. But I think the first step is going to be assembling the block of the engine. Oh, there's the body shell. Right, let's put all these bits away. I think what we need to do first is assemble the block of the engine so we can figure out how and if it's going to fit in the chassis. So we'll do that first. And I'm also going to put the heating on because it's freezing in here, so I apologise in advance for the noise. Okay, so I've got the block and I've got the heads. I need super glue. And we'll quickly pop this together. And then what we'll do after that is have a look at the frame, the chassis, and see how this thing goes together. Right, so the way this works, you've got these slots cut in the block, and then the heads have a corresponding locating thing on them, so they just fit together like that. So let's get some glue on here and pop that into there. Oh, line up. You've got to be a little bit careful with this because it grabs really quick on this resin. The Super Glue works really well on resin. Right, that's that one. Right, so what we'll do next is we'll have a look at the floor pan and the chassis and see how that all goes together. Right, so this is interesting because this, as I said, has two engine options, and because of that it has two sets of frame rails. So you've got a wider one here. This one is for the blown engine, and this narrower one is for the non-blown, the triple carb setup, and it has two different transmission mounts as well, which is actually quite handy. Have I actually got that the right way around? I might have just put that in upside down. I think I'll just put that in upside down. Yes, I have. Right, just why I didn't glue that. It's fine, everything's fine. Right, so that goes in like that. There we go. And then that one goes, oh, which way around does that go? That bit goes up. Okay, so that goes like that. And then it uses the same floor pan for both, as far as I can tell. And that basically picks up on these two lugs here and these two at the back. So whichever one you go for, you're going to be using the same. Where's the... Oh. Yeah, so that goes like that. So whichever one you use, you're using the same floor pan. So what we need to figure out is which one of these this fits in better. I think we might need to put the transmission on as well. Okay. I don't really want to fit the transmission yet because I want to paint that separately. Right. Let me do a little bit of fiddling around and then we'll see which one, how this works. Right, I've figured this out. So even with the default block and transmission, I still think you'd have trouble fitting this. It's a really, really tight fit. I mean, there is, you know, that is basically sitting on the transmission there. And it's not, I don't know if you can see that at all, but those two pins, those two blocks are not really sitting in the, you know, as close as they should be. And that's why this engine doesn't fit, because it's basically sitting too high in the chassis. What they've done here is they've got the engine mounts are basically right below the head. So if I pop that out, and also there's a hole in the back of the transmission there that fits over that pin, and that lets that sit lower. So what I've done is I've drilled a hole in the back of this transmission, so that gets it where it needs to be. But you can see that it's sitting at a rather acute angle. So I think this will work, but what I'm going to have to do is cut these engine mounts back to allow the engine to drop down, and hopefully that will give us the clearance that we need. It definitely means that those headers are never going to fit. They are going to have to be modified rather extensively to fit, but we'll worry about that when the time comes. So like I say, what I need to do is cut these back to make them fit, and that's going to be interesting. I'll have to try and figure out the best way to do that, how much I need to cut off, because I need to have this right down. It's difficult to show you. Basically right down like that. So I'm going to have to cut about 1/8 of an inch off the end of each engine mount to get the engine to sit low enough in the frame for it to actually fit. So I will do that, and then we'll see how we get on. Okay, I think I've just about got this solved. I might need to trim a little bit of the floor away in here, because it's catching on a couple of the studs, but I don't think that's going to be too much problem. I mean, in all fairness, I would not want to fit this if it was a real car. It would be a nightmare. But I've cut the engine mounts back down here on both sides to allow the block to sit lower, and I might just adjust that a little more, because I think it wants to go a little touch more, but I need to be very careful how I adjust it, because it actually hits the block in a different point on each side. This block is not symmetrical, so I need to make sure I get it so that it sits square and central, and hopefully that should now put us in about the same spot. The only problem is the fact that you can see here, I don't know if you can see here at the front, but this block is significantly larger than this one, because this is a small block and this is a big block. So I've just got to make sure, once I've got this in the right place, I'll put the accessory drive on the front and then try fitting the radiator and see how that works. And once that's all in, I think the next step is going to be making sure that the firewall fits, and at that point I think we can, because what you're supposed to do according to the instructions, as you do with a lot of these things, is you build the frame and then you slide the engine and drop it in. But I couldn't get this engine in, the one that came with the kit. It wouldn't go in and fit over the pin on the transmission cross member. So I think I'm going to have to paint all this up, put the engine in, then put the floor in, and then, you know, figure out the rest of it, which is fantastic. But we'll see how it goes. It might actually be as easy to try assembling the body and everything and putting that on as well and making sure that all fits. Yeah, but I think we're getting somewhere. So I'll do a bit more adjustment on this, and then I think we can start test fitting some other pieces and then start putting some paint on this thing. It's the next day. I need to drop the engine down a touch more, that's fine. But I was just starting to fit I wanted to just put the radiator in with the front pulley assembly, just to make sure it's all going to fit properly. And it just brings me back to this thing, and I've mentioned this before with these chrome parts. It's like, that looks very shiny, it's very nice, but obviously I've had to cut it off. So there's two white bits there where I've cut it off. I mean, admittedly they put them at the bottom, so it's not as bad. But there's a big bit of flashing there that I'm going to have to scrape off. So that's going to ruin that. And it's like, if we look at the windscreen surround, there's a big bit of flashing there. There's all of these bits that need to come off. And then there's mould lines down each side. So, you know, again, it's like, it's almost like, what's the point? and there's so much chrome on this. I mean, there's all of this, you know, all the suspension and everything. The wheels. I mean, the wheels are not too much of a problem. I might just leave the wheels as they are, actually. I need the front axle as well, because the other thing I've got to check once I've done the pulley assembly is check that the sump fits. But the same thing again. It's like by the time I've cut all of these bits off, you know, it's just not gonna work. So, but anyway, that's just what it is. So let's cut this axle off while we're at it. See, they've kind of tried to do it in such a way that you can, you know, keep as much of the chrome as possible. But it's like, I've got to cut these bits off and these bits here. And so there's going to be like big gaps in the chrome. So, yeah. I don't know if I really want the axle chrome anyway. Do I need anything? I need the radiator. Oh god, now I've got to figure out which radiator. So I'm using basically the blower setup. Let's take that off. Let's pop this on. He says, stay. Oh, come here. Right, and that sits in those tabs there, so that is fine. We've got plenty of room there. So that's okay. Now, the axle, let's just pop that off. Where does the axle go? The axle goes in there. Obviously, I'll clean all this up properly before I put it... Well, I say the axle goes in there. The axle actually doesn't go in there. Oh, is that it? That's not a very good fit. Right, the axle is nowhere near the engine, so we're okay with that. So we can put the sump on, no problem. So I think what I'm going to have to do, because the other problem I have here is with the body. Let's just... Oh, this is just all getting very... Why do I do this? Right, the engine's shifted, so that's useful. Right. So I need to drop the engine down a touch more to get it to fit, to get the body to fit properly. Like I say, this body, the floor pan doesn't fit very well anyway. It really doesn't fit together very well, this model. I'm quite disappointed with this, I have to say. Okay. See, the funny thing of it is, the plan, even with the stock engine, the plan calls for you to slide this in and then drop it into place, but it doesn't actually fit. It's almost impossible to get that in under the body, under the floor pan, and then get it up on top of the gearbox cross member. And even with this one, it's still basically touching the floor pan. It's really not a great design. But this one, it just won't go. I mean, it might possibly, but not really. You could probably wangle it in there. But I think what I'm going to have to do is paint and assemble the engine, because the other thing that's going to be a nightmare is doing the plug wires. That's going to be awful. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint the engine and transmission, everything out of the car, paint the frame and the floor pan, and you know the running gear, the drivetrain, and then basically put these together and then put the body on. I think that's how I'm going to have to do it, because the other problem that I'm going to have, which is not going to help, is this this bit here. That's where the steering rack goes, or the steering column. So it goes basically where these tweezers are, like that. And the idea is that when you put the body on, there's a hole there, and you have to kind of, I'm just holding all this together because obviously it's not glued, but you have to kind of go over the steering column, drop the body on, and then put the steering wheel on, which I think is going to be interesting, because the other problem that we've got, another problem, because yeah, let's pop that back in for a second, out there, put the floor pan back in as best we can. The other problem is the firewall isn't going to work as it is at the moment. It goes kind of like that-ish. And if I put the inlet manifold on, it's touching the firewall. Now, if I was just leaving it like that, I would probably just leave it. I wouldn't worry about it too much. But the real problem is we've still got the air cleaner to go on. And the scoop. So this needs to go on top of here. And as it stands at the moment, it basically hits the front of the firewall. In fact, I think it even hits the body itself, because that needs to be about there. So that will just about clear, but I just push the body back doing that. That's where the body should be. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to notch the firewall, plus the fact at the moment I can't get the rocker covers on either, because they're going to hit the firewall. And it's just like, okay, this is so I'm going to have to basically do something with that firewall, but that's not the end of the world. I don't know what that is. Now the other problem I had, which actually is a bit of good news, was the headers. Because if you remember, I was thinking, how on earth am I going to get these headers in where they need to go? Where are my tweezers? Because these obviously should be like that, and they don't fit because the chassis rail gets in the way. And I thought, I'm going to have to cut these and basically flip them, you know, like tilt them out. But then it occurred to me, if I actually take, oh, I've done it again, I keep jogging it. If I flip them around and put them on upside down, they actually clear the body like that. So we're going to be running open headers like that, which I think is quite cool. The only thing that's slightly annoying is it means I'm going to have to spend some time cleaning these up, because I don't know how well you can see that, but you can see that's I had the supports on the inside of the header, because obviously normally you'd look at it from this side. So I put all the supports on the inside so I wouldn't have to worry too much about cleaning them up. But of course now I'm going to have to clean them up. But again, I think what I'm going to have to do is do all of this, the engine, everything out of the car, and then build the drivetrain, put the engine in, put the floor in, build the body separately, and then put all that together. So yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to spend some time getting this engine in exactly the right place. And it's not far off. The big problem is going to be, I want to get the engine kind of mounted where it needs to go, so I know exactly what to do with the firewall. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to modify the firewall, and then we'll see where we are from there. Right, so after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, the engine now fits. But I've had to remove a significant portion of the firewall, which I will show you in a minute. I've been on this now probably for, I don't know, a good couple of hours, just cutting away and cutting away and cutting away until it all fits in. And it's still a very, very tight fit. So I just wanted to pause at this point because I wanted to show you what I'd done before I start patching up the holes. The problem is, and I think I mentioned this before, if you look at the engine that comes with the car, let me show you the firewall, and then I'll show you the engine side by side. Hang on, let's take that out of there for a second, pop that back on there. So there you can see how much of the firewall I've removed. And I still need to remove a little bit more, but that's fine. And then I can start patching it up again. I'm going to patch the holes from the inside because the tolerances are really tight, because I don't really want to remove any more plastic if I can avoid it. But as I say, the problem is I wanted the basically the tail housings of the gearbox mounted in the same spot, so hopefully the prop shaft will fit. But if you put these side by side, the problem is you can see how much larger this big block is. I mean, this is a small block and this is a big block, and you know, as the name suggests, it's a big block. It's bigger than a small block, so it's physically larger. I mean, it's like if you actually put them exactly side by side, it's like almost like having it's like trying to put a V10 into a V8. It's just that much bigger. But that's fine. It's pretty much done now. Like I said, a little bit of tidying up, and then I'm going to start patching the holes. And to patch the holes, I'm just going to use stuff like this. This is plastic hard. This is just a little scrap that I've got, and I'll start using this to get rid of it. But this is 1/4 millimeter, 0.25 mil. I don't know what that is in inches. Sorry, you'll have to do that yourself. But what I'm going to do is I'll cut pieces of this and I'll glue them on, some of them from the inside and some from the outside, just to fill the holes. And then we will move on from there. Right, well, after much wailing and gnashing of teeth, it's in. The engine is fitted. It's not obviously fitted fully, but it's everything, I think, works. So let me just pop this apart and show you what I've done. So I basically had to remove probably about 2/3 of the firewall to make this all fit together, but it works. And I also deliberately made it look quite slapdash. I didn't try and blend in any of this because I wanted it to look like someone's done exactly what I've done, cut bits out and then like welded bits in. So that's why it's like that. And plus the fact you can't see it when it's behind the engine anyway, so but that's fine. So there's the engine sitting in the frame, and then this just he says pops on like that, you see. So now it fits properly. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint the engine first and get that all assembled, and then we're going to start looking at doing the same with the frame. Get the frame and the engine assembled, and we'll save this until last, because the one other thing I have to do is fit the steering column, and I think that is going to be it simply will not fit now. Basically the steering column would go right through that header, so we'll have to figure something out for that, but we might just have to cheat it and just have the steering column inside the cockpit, but we'll figure that out when we get to that point. But yeah, it's all moving along. So engine is next. Right, let's start putting some paint on this thing. So I've given all of the engine parts a coat of either this high coat white primer or the high coat grey, just depending on what colours I'm going to do. Now, the first thing I'm going to paint is actually this air filter, and the reason I'm doing this is because I want to do I want to do the elements of the filter in red, so I'm going to use this XF7 flat red and just put that on with a brush. And you might wonder why I'm doing this with this red instead of a, you know, like a Citadel red or something that covers a bit better. Is because what I actually want it to do is, if you look, you can see it's actually kind of settling into the grooves. It's almost kind of like self-highlighting. So it gives a nice bit of variation to the colour, so it's not just uniform red. And once I've got this painted, I can actually mask these up, and then I'm going to spray the rest of it. That's why I'm not being too precious about it. I don't mind if there's a little bit going over, because we're going to be spraying the rest of this afterwards. There we go. And while I've got that same red out, I'm going to do the engine block in red as well. So there we go. Right, so next step is this all-clad gloss black base on all the other bits, and I'll show you why that is once it's done. Suitable protection, because this stuff is nasty. You do not want to be spraying this without a mask. So excuse me while I go all muffled. Right, let's see how this chrome goes on. Oh, I love this stuff. Right. And there we go. Because everyone knows that chrome adds at least 10 horsepower. Right, so I've painted this all up. I painted the belts on the accessory drive as well. There's the air cleaner with the tape removed. And so now, you just got to stick all this together. Now again, because this is resin, I'm just using some cheap super glue from the pound shop. You can buy expensive stuff, but I find the cheap stuff works just as well. So put that gearbox on last. Now, how are we going to do this? Right, I'll tell you what the first thing we'll do is we'll stick this air cleaner together. Just run a bit of glue around there. And pop that in there and try not to stick my fingers to it. Oh, there we go. Right. See, it's just to give that a little splash of colour in there, that's all. Right. And I think what we can do as well is pop this on the top of the carburetors. And we'll just drop that on there like that. Try and get it somewhere near straight. Now, one thing you may notice actually as I'm doing this is the difference in colour between the scoop and the intake. And this is something I meant to mention, and I'll do it now before I forget. When you spray this lacquer, and I don't know if it's the same for all lacquers or just all clad. I must admit I only really use all clad. But if you take a piece like this and then spray it with a gloss acrylic, it actually changes colour and it goes more of a kind of a grey. Now I found that out by mistake the hard way, because I did it on something once and once I ruined it, but it wasn't the look I was really after. But in this instance I actually wanted that look. I did that on purpose. because I wanted it. I don't want the inlet manifold, the tunnel ram, to be chromed. I wanted it to look like raw aluminium. So that's why I did that. But I didn't spray any of the other parts because I want them chrome. So if you're going to put any kind of finish on lacquer, make sure you test it first, because it can radically change the colour. But anyway, that's beside the point. I just wanted to mention that while we were putting this together. I think put the sump on next. That goes on. Oh God, I got hold of this completely wrong. That goes like that. And let's get that into position. Preferably before the glue sets up, because this is the thing I found with super glue, and especially on like raw resin, it sticks in an instant. You know, I mean, it really is an instant adhesive. But there you go. Right, that's that. And I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the rocker covers on. Like that. I'll do this one. I did put some gloss varnish. This is one of the reasons I like this engine the way it is, that it comes in pieces like this, is because I did put some gloss varnish on the block, because I wanted that, you know, a bit shiny, like it had been sprayed with a gloss paint. I suppose I could have just sprayed it with gloss paint, couldn't I? I'm not sure if I've got any gloss red actually. I think I have, but... Alright, you can go on there like that. That's at least another 10 horsepower. Now, let's put the accessory drive on. So this is the first one of these I've ever actually built and stuck together. I've printed a few of them just to test them, but this is the first one I've actually put together, so it's kind of interesting to see how it all goes together. Alright, that goes like that. That's a nice looking engine, I like that. I'm going to put those on last. And now let's put the inlet manifold on. Like, oh, stay like that. I do love a tunnel ram. They are fairly absurd, but they do look good. Oh, stand up. You're not going to stand up now, are you? I'm just wondering whether to put the transmission on as well. Yeah, let's put the transmission on before we put the headers on. Okay, you stay there like that, and that actually helps the engine sit level. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a couple of minutes to set up, Actually, well, let's try. Let's see if we can get one of these on. So I've got to be careful I put these on the right way round, because they need to go on upside down like that. I say the way this has gone together, I think we'll be alright doing it all in one go. Oh, right, now let's put that on there like that. Stay, don't stick to my finger. Okay, that one's on. It looks really weird with those on like that, but it will look fine once it's in the car. Oh, stay. Oh, there we go. Never mind. There's probably a much better way of dispensing super glue for this kind of thing than the way I do it, but I've been doing it like this for so long now that I just keep doing it. Oh, stick. There we go. Right, and there it is. Our assembled 572 big block with tunnel ram. And some very funky looking headers. Actually, that other header is in. That's probably stuck now, isn't it? I think it'll be alright. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, but I'm going to leave this to set up first, is I'm going to run the plug wires, because I'll never get to that distributor once it's in the car. And then we can basically put this to one side and move on with the rest of the car. So I'll let this set up and then we'll put the plug leads on. Right, plug leads, that's next. So this is wire. It's 0.75mm wire, and it is actually wire. I bought this from China a long time ago. I think it's 10 meters of it, and I paid pennies for it. And I do use it. I use it a lot, this wire, because it is very, very thin and very, you know, it's nice for, it's good for modelling. If you're lighting a model, this is the good stuff to use. I mean, I used it for when I was wiring the Imperial Star Destroyer that I did a while ago. All the wiring in there is this. So I bought 10 meters of red and 10 meters of black. But the nice thing about it is, it also works very well for plug leads. So let's see if we can do this without wrecking this thing. Oh, this is going to be fun. It doesn't want to doesn't want to stay. Super glue. So normally what I would do is start with the distributor and then work my way down to the plugs, but in this case, because I've got to thread the wires through the headers, what I'm going to do instead, I've already cut some pieces off here, is I'm going to do this the other way around, and I'm going to start at the plug leads, at the plugs, and work my way back, as it were. So here we go. Where are my glasses? There they are. Ugh. Okay. So take plug wire, dip plug wire into super glue, and then stick it in the hole. Stop laughing at the back. Like that. Now, I did actually consider painting the block a different colour as it goes, because I wanted the red to kind of, to stand out against everything, but I also decided that I liked the red block. I was going to do it like orange, but I think it looks better in red. It's more hot rod. But there you go. Anyway, so what I should have done really with this was started from the back and worked to the front, but there you go. I did actually, because the heads, and when you print them, they have like a little dimple where the plug leads go, and so I drilled them out using a 0.75mm drill. So that this bit would be a bit easier. And I also drilled out the distributor, and that was all kinds of fun. Right, let's give those a minute to dry, and then we'll thread them through to the distributor. So what I'm doing now is I'm just threading the plug wires through the header, and if this was a real engine, these plug wires would melt in a second, but it's fine. For what we're doing, it's absolutely fine. Because I just realised actually what I haven't done, which I will have to go and do, is I have no idea what the firing order is for this engine. I'm working on the assumption that it's a Chevy, and I know any of you who watch Roadkill are probably sitting there with one of David Freiburger's firing order t-shirts on and probably going, it's 1874 whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, I know, but I don't know that, so that's fine. So I think what I'll do is I'll put the plug leads in this side as well, and then I'll go and find out what the what the firing order is, and then we'll come back and go from there. Okay, so I got this, oh god, I don't know if you can see that. I got this from Summit Racing's website. It's just the firing order and the location of the cylinders. I did the same thing, if you remember, on the nail head on the Freedom Ford. I really enjoyed building that Freedom Ford. I'm kind of on a bit of a car bent, as you may have noticed at the moment. Anyway, so let's have a look. So I was right in what I was thinking, that number one is this one here. So what we need to do is get this wire into that one there. So let's see how we're going to do this, because what I want to try and do is get it, I've got to like really try and tuck it up behind, because there's no space at the back here. This is almost up against the firewall. I mean, in all fairness, I could put these in anywhere. You can't see it, but I would rather they went in the right place, because then I'll know that they're there. So let's just snip the end of that off, like that. I'm only going to do one of these at the moment, and I'll do the rest off camera, or maybe two, for the simple reason that it's a lot easier for me to see this if I get like in close, and at the moment it's one of these things, because I've got a camera between me and the engine, it's quite difficult for me to see what I'm doing, so which I'm sure you can appreciate. It's not ideal, but it's fine. We'll manage. Okay, a bit of super glue, and so we'll get a bit of super glue on the end of the wire there, like that, and then we'll take this and try and get it in there. Oh, this is going to be fun. I don't think I've quite bent this right, is the problem. See, now I've got hold of it in a better way, but I can't see what I'm doing. Just talk amongst yourselves for a minute. This is one of those things where you need three hands, because what I need to do is hold the engine, hold the wire in place, and then push it in. This tweezers are not helping. Hang on, I need a different pair of tweezers. He says, not finding a different pair of tweezers. Oh, these ones will be better. Okay, probably wants a touch more glue on that now, actually. There we go. Oh. There we go. That's the kitty. Right. Now I want to straighten it up a bit if I can without doing that. Oh. Oh, for God's sake. I don't know about you, but I'm having a whale of a time. Stay. There we go. Right. That's better. So I will do the rest of these and we'll come back and see what it looks like. Right. That looks right, doesn't it? The firing order is actually slightly incorrect because I accidentally cut one of the wires too short. But anyway, it doesn't matter. As I say, you can't even see the distributor from the back of the thing anyway. But I think we are just about done with this engine now, for now. And I think we can now move on to the frame. I think we'll start with the frame next. Yeah, let's do that. Right, slight change of plans. I put all the chrome bits in some bleach to get the chrome off, and they've been in there for 2 days and it hasn't shifted. So we're going to have to resort to plan B on that. But what I'm going to do in the meantime is do some bits on this interior. Because what I want to do, and I've done this, again, I did this on the Freedom Ford, I'm going to do it again on here, is I'm going to wrap the seat and also these side panels, these are the interior side panels, with... where is it? Tin foil. This stuff. Because the side panels have this padded detail. So I'm going to use some tin foil for that. So I won't do all of it on camera. I just want to give you an idea. So I need scissors. That's what I need. There's some scissors. Okay, so we don't need to go right all the way to the back. Only because the seat is actually about here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go basically like that. And the nice thing is what you can do is just kind of push that in a bit. And it gives you the outline. And then we can just cut around it. And then we can trim it off. So I want a bit extra. Because what I'm going to do is fold that over the top. So let's just cut that, put that to one side, and super glue. That's what we need right now. Bit of this. Try not to get it all over my fingers. A healthy dollop of that. And we'll start on the bottom here. And I'm just going to put some super glue along the bottom edge here. Maybe a little bit at the back here. Now we take this and we pop it on like that. Line it up on the bottom there. And just push that into place. Oh, and it slides all over the place. And I'm sticking my fingers to it. It's fine, everything's fine. Right. We'll give that a minute to set up. And we just start working this into all of the edges like this. And the nice thing with the cotton bud, because it's nice and blunt, it won't, well, hopefully won't rip the tin foil. And you can see we just work that into all the little nooks and crannies. We'll just go along the top here like this, smooth that out a bit because it is a bit. Now we're going to have to notch this, but I mean, I'll do that in a minute. Because what I want to do now is lift that up like that, so that I can get underneath here with some more super glue. And I want to just go along like the top of the door if I can. Doesn't matter if it goes down a little bit, down the front a little bit, as long as it gets onto the top. Because what I want to do is take this, push it back into place, and kind of roll that over like that. I might even put a little bit of glue on the back here as well and stick that right down. Like that, and then we come back in with our cotton bud and just give it another smooth out. It doesn't have to be perfect, because as I say, we're going to be damaging this, so it doesn't matter if it's not absolutely spot on, because the idea is, again, to make it look old. Because I'm not sure if I already mentioned this, but the idea I've had with this, which may change because you know what I'm like, but my idea is I'm going to turn this into kind of like a resto mod. So what I want to do is have the engine and the frame and everything looking nice, and then the body is like it's just been put on. It's like the person who's building it is like, that's near enough, let's drive it, you know. Because we all know that's what we will be like if we were doing these things. Right, there we go. Now we can put some primer on this. I'll do the other bits and I'll put some primer on this, and then we'll move on from there. Right, so I just did a few bits off camera. So I've done the side panels, or I've laid the groundwork for the side panels here. So what I did was I just gave them a coat of black primer, because I'm going to do the interior black and red. So black, and where this kind of stitched ribbed bit is, I'm going to do that red. So sprayed it black, masked it up, white primer, this XF7 focus, XF7 flat red, and then I sealed that with some Vallejo gloss varnish. That's where we're up to now. And now you can see I've got some oil paints. I've never done this before, so I don't know if this is going to work, but what I'm going to try and do is do some highlights and lowlights on this with oil paints. So I've got myself a little bit of cardboard, which actually came from the Mustang box, from the Mustang I built the other day. And I'm going to put a little bit of paint on here. Now, I've used these Crawford and Black paints before. You've seen me use these before. And what I like about them is they're actually not particularly good oil paints, which sounds counterproductive, I know, but follow me. Basically, they have a lot of pigment and not a lot of oil. And as a result, for this kind of thing, they actually work really well. They're useless as oil paints, but they're very handy for stuff like this. Now I'm going to put a bit of black there as well. I don't think I'm going to need the black, quite frankly, because I think this red is dark enough as it is. But just in case. So yeah, this should be basically the same as any kind of oil weathering. I'm just doing it on a seat rather than, you know, like an aircraft or something like I normally would. I've also got this brush here. This is an eyeshadow brush that I got from the pound shop. Or a charity shop, one of the two, I can't remember now. Anyway, so this is what we're going to do. This is a very cheap brush that I've got here. And I'm not sure if this brush is going to be a lot of good actually. I think I want to find a point really. But we'll see. And what I want to do is just go down these edges like this. Just like the grooves in between. This stuff is really thick. Like that. So I'm just going down all the grooves with this darker red. And what I want to do is just create those shadow lines. Just make sure I've actually got this in front of the camera. Oh, this brush is awful. I got these brushes. I got them from Wish, and it was 10 for £1, and they're absolutely rubbish. So basically, this is all I use them for. Is stuff like this. Is for like oil paints and stuff. I don't use them for anything else because they're absolutely awful. But anyway, so they work for this. Just even this, they don't do very well. Now what I'm going to do, actually I'll use the bigger end, is just blend that in like that. I think it's working. Now let's get another one of these nasty brushes. Look at the state of that. Look. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just put the tiniest amount of this is going to be great, the tiniest amount of white. This is going to go horribly, you watch. Just a little bit like that. Just to try and highlight it. Now we've created some low lights, let's see if we can create some highlights. Alright, let's see what that does. Oh, this is quite awkward to do with all this tape on it. Doesn't look too bad. What do you think? Let's move on to the seat. Alright, this is going to be fun. This is why I did that other bit first, because as you can see, this seat is a slightly different proposition. And I apologise if it's difficult for you to see what I'm doing, but it's basically the same thing. I'm just going into the grooves in the seat with this red. And then I'll hit the highlights with the white. Part of the trouble when you attack it like that, the bristles come out of the brush and get stuck to the paint. Apparently, so I'm reliably informed, if you look closely at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, painted by Michelangelo, you can actually see bristles stuck in the paint. And apparently the reason for that is because when he was painting it, he had to basically get the paint on while the plaster was still wet, or still damp at least. So they had to kind of wait for it to go off a bit and then paint it. And so he had to really apparently like attack it to get the paint down before it all dried up, before the plaster dried. And that kind of bonded the pigment to the plaster, and that's why it's lasted so long. And they say that if you look at it closely, you can actually see the bristles stuck in the plaster, where he was really kind of having at having at it, as it were. So, but anyway, there you go. But he painted that whole thing lying on his back. I had a scaffold, and so rather than standing like painting over his head, he laid on his back and painted it like that, which actually, when you think about it, makes a lot more sense. Alright, let's get a bit of white on it. I especially want to get some, actually I'm going to do a bit more on the back as well, because this is the driver's side, so this would actually get more wear than the passenger side. Right, yeah, I think that looks all right, doesn't it? Yeah. So we'll let this dry for a while and then we'll seal it up, and I'll do the other panels. Right. I think these have actually come out not too bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to unmask them and see what they look like. Right, it's lifted some of the paint off of the tin foil, but so yeah, that doesn't look too bad. I'll touch up these bits of black. I'll unmask the rest. I'll do anything that needs touching up, and then I'll hit them with some matte lacquer just to seal it all. Right, so there's the seat and the side panels, both done. I've also thrown some paint on the floor as well, but that's just sprayed black. I did actually cover the floor with another bit of tin foil just to give it a bit of texture. They have actually textured the floor, but I put that in as like it's almost like a rubber mat. So that's that as well. And I think we are now in a position where we can start working on the interior of the body shell and getting the dashboard fitted and all that kind of thing. But the thing is, the dashboard has to go in, it goes into these slots here, so it all has to kind of go together at the same time. So I'll have to have a little think about how I'm going to put this together. And I've also got some bits that I've 3D printed off camera to go in the interior as well. So that will be next, I think. But I think that will have to wait until next time. I think let's wrap this up for now. So here for now is our finished article. We've actually done a lot more on this than you might think by looking at this. It looks like virtually nothing's happened, but there's a lot of things that were quite time consuming, getting that big block to fit, modifying the firewall and all the rest of it. We've also tried some new techniques for the interior, or well, modifications of existing techniques, and I think it's come out quite well. So in the next video we will continue. We'll finish off the body and then turn our attention to the frame. So yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. I'd also like to take a moment to thank my top tier patrons, Howard and Amy, for their continued support, and indeed all of my patrons. I appreciate all of you. And if any of you are feeling a little flush and would like to join them, then do feel free to pop over to Patreon It would be much appreciated. And in any case, you're always welcome to come and join us in the staff canteen on Facebook. So hopefully you're enjoying this build so far, and you'll come and join me in future episodes. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. Bye.